Oh, I was muted. Permit me to take a go at it from a point of, great passion before I take an attempt at the financing problem. I feel like a broader, very important context that is relevant to the ongoing conversation at this moment is to reiterate. I mean, that's why we're here, but it's important to reiterate the very significant role of the social sector or the third sector. It is possible that the way the sector is currently constituted, even key players, civil society organizations, nonprofits, social entrepreneurs, impact-driven innovators do not recognize how significant they are to trigger every next level of development for the nation. I was in Minnesota, many months ago, and I got the opportunity to just spend a lot of time with nonprofit organizations and impact investors. Minnesota has the highest amount of nonprofits in the United States. It is one of the 5 wealthiest states in the US. It is one of the top 3 best places to live in. It is one of the cleanest states, right? It is a huge contributor to the economy. And it has a large amount of Native Americans who are usually at the lower rank of the pyramid, right? So they are experiencing, different degrees of poverty, but in Minnesota, they are the best cared for, and they have the closest or easiest access to interventions and infrastructure. So what I started to see and what got reiterated as I listened to a lot of the nonprofit leaders in Minnesota was the tremendous impact that the social sector was having on the economy and how it was impacting on the state itself. So it is very key not to continue to think about the third sector as just happenstance or, filled with a bunch of altruistic, passionate, but not very strategic or intellectual people, right? Or to just think that people who don't get a great job just get dumped into that sector, or those who just have a passion for the poor but don't know how to get a seat at the table with the private sector are those who play here. The future of the continent and its prosperity in an emerging sense, especially in the face of the disruptions that are being created by a global pandemic, is very connected to the effectiveness of the third sector. So I'm excited about a dialogue such as this, and I truly believe that we must begin to really not just say it. In fact, in saying it, I almost want to laugh because it's such a mouthed word. We say it all the time, right? But we must really begin to invest in multi-level, multi-sectoral collaborations. Now, the reason it is more important today than ever is because honestly, the types of challenges and crisis that we're facing in Nigeria and in other, African nations is what I call a wicked problem. It is woven into themselves. It is connected. So you can't even try to tackle a problem from one impact area point of view. You can't just say it's education. Education is linked to gender. It's linked to vulnerable children. It's linked to drug and substance abuse. It's linked to healthcare. So if we are going to be able to tackle the degree of the wicked problems that we're confronted by as a nation and really deliver social welfare, social protection type programs, we must really begin to work together. Really work together. The silos has to break. There's got to be a developed ecosystem that can drive the degree of change we're looking for. And I ride on the back of that quickly to say, from that point of building a sector that has a voice so that it becomes like a very organized engine for development, we can then begin to get behind the doors and get conversations with the government. What Taiwo said is just so profound. It touched me in a very powerful way, because the honest truth is you would even begin to discover that the government, even when it has the best intentions, is sometimes just at loss as to what to really do, right? Okay, it looks like Shea is just hanging. I just hope the network is still great. I can see Taiwo, I can see Shola. Okay, looks good, right? So the government sometimes has the great intentions, but doesn't even have field data. So in the midst of saying, oh, we don't have data, the interesting thing is that we who are the social saviors, engaging the beneficiaries, moving into the communities, are meant to be custodians of the most accurate data. We are meant to be providers of this data to the government. So the game has to change. You know, when Taiwo said this, and I had to write it down, I just said, my God, that's it. Data-driven policy, it rides on the tracks of data-driven personnel. So we as players in the impact-driven social sector have to improve capacities for collating data, analyzing data, publishing data. Do you see, if budget wants to train the sector and begin to work with frontline professionals, then let us do that. But we do need to become providers of support, local content, and data-driven solutions to the government, saying, how can we do this? And that is where, if we're coming together as a force, we will be heard quicker. I had, you know, an interview session with Olusegun Igbinde just a few days ago, extremely brilliant. I mean, he's just that amazing. And I was asking questions around, help us understand the character and the ego of the government, because we're starting to see that as long as we keep treating the government as the enemy, because we keep picking drop balls of inefficient leadership and you know, governance, and we keep treating the government as the enemy, we are not going to get as far as we will get. The final thing that I would love to share as far as the funding mechanisms are concerned is really that the game is going to change in the new normal for every impact-driven organization. Now, Ideation Hub has been, providing social profit incubation for early stage social entrepreneurs. And one of the things we continue to say is we must be healed of this unhealthy reliance on philanthropy and funding from international development organizations. And we must begin to use an innovative enterprise model internal to our own organizations to fund the interventions that we want to create for the community. Do you see? So social entrepreneurship is no longer just going to be a buzzword. It's going to be a model of delivering intervention, giving value for value, earning sufficiently to stay sustainable, because the problem is not a short-term type situation. And so we must be built and reinforced for the long term. And then finally, it has been said again and again, I would like to really say that Nigeria has resources. It is possible to stand on the side of the government so much and be like, we are a poor economy. We are not just poor because it was handed to us. We are poor because we have grossly mismanaged resources. So the whole conversation around radical accountability is going to be so key. There are resources, but we have too many leakages, right? So if we begin to plug the leakages and grow accountability, be sure that we're definitely going to have more funds and we can do a lot more with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deborah. That was really insightful. Key points around the mindset shift with regards to the social sector and also how different players in the ecosystem